absolute rubbish. And that's what happens when they bring rubbish law in. It starts affecting innocent people. And it's interesting to understand why we don't have a Bill of Rights. See, the blokes that stood in this house behind us many, many years ago tried to determine what the future of our country would be. And they wrote a constitution in 1901. And they implied some rights in that constitution, and it was a fairly good attempt to give us rights and a separation of powers in this country. And those rights were written in very basically because they expected that our common law rights would continue on, and they were a fairly good system. About the only place they failed was our Aboriginal people here, who weren't mentioned originally. In fact, they didn't even get any rights at all, which was just horrific. But so what we basically had, the Constitution gave us a few implied rights. It gave us the implied right of a trial by jury, which we no longer have, and it's been watered down by the High Court. We have freedom of religion. That's about the only one that appears to be left. We had freedom from discrimination. Now, you know, the actual document that said no discrimination didn't even give Aboriginals the right to vote. So they buggered up from day one. We had free trade between the states, and we had an entitlement to vote. And that entitlement to vote, I was in the court last year, 2010, when the Commonwealth government sent in lawyers to actually argue that we didn't have a right to vote. So that's what they think of your rights. You've got none. The common law aspect was really good because trial by jury was brilliant. If you went in and faced, you know, any sort of charges, you had a jury of your peers, and they would find a just finding. There was a bit of justice still in the system, and that's all gone. And these guys don't want you to have rights. And the problem we've got here today is our kids don't know what their rights are. What are our rights? Can the police come onto your property whenever they feel like it? Can they pull you over whenever they feel like it? Are your children safe? I mean, what are our rights? We need a defined set of rights. We need defined rights that the legislators can't touch. Canberra has a Bill of Rights, Victoria has a Bill of Rights, Tassie has a Bill of Rights, but the government can change them whenever they like. Now that's not acceptable. We know it's not acceptable. So what we need to do now is we need to demand a Bill of Rights that protects our children, okay? Because those great people in that other place we were earlier, that sacrificed life and limb for us, they sacrificed for our freedoms, our liberties and our democracy. And these arseholes in the place behind us are taking them away, and that's not good enough. I will keep it short. I forgot to say something in the last place, actually. This is actually interesting. When I wrote my version of Bill of Rights, or collated it, should I say, I didn't write it, and tried to put something together, I used Nelson Mandela's. And there's a saying by it, when a man is denied the right to live the life he believes in, he has no choice but to become an outlaw. And that was Nelson Mandela. I'll keep it short here. We need a Bill of Rights. We need to protect our children. It's our turn to fight. It's our turn to sacrifice, and that sacrifice is coming to places like this. Our sacrifice is saying, this is bad law, we will not accept it, we will not abide by it. This means that we have to break the law. I don't know if you know that Newman and his government asked the police to break the law. And when the police union over there stood up and said, no, you can't, we don't want to break the law, he said, if you don't, you're sacked. Yeah. So the person that we should be arresting and putting in jail now for being a criminal bastard is that idiot in Queensland, Campbell Newman. Well, I think we can leave it at that. One interesting thing I'll just tell you.
Where's the pot? It's
fly. That was nice.
No worries.
We need a constitution. The constitution needs to be concrete. It needs to be attached to. We need a Bill of Rights that's attached to our constitution. We need it to be retrospective on bad law. So instead of us coming here every month or every week like we should do to oppose bad law, we need a Bill of Rights that will actually overcome that and actually tell our judiciary and tell our morons in this house up behind us that we have rights and you can't take them away. You're actually employed to look after us. And what's really interesting is we vote for these people, right, to protect us, to protect our country. Now, they then turn around and say protection is wrong. So these Australian flags you see around the place are probably made in China. And our fruit and produce is coming from bloody China. And, you know, they're selling our land to foreign countries. In fact, they're attacking everything that our forefathers fought for, and it's unacceptable rubbish. And if we have to stand up here today, and we have to come here every week, and we have to start saying, no, we will not abide by this is rubbish law, and that's our right to do that. And if we don't do that, then our children are going to perish and suffer as a consequence. So it's time to say no. It's time to start arresting the criminals, the real criminals, and that's Campbell Newman's one of them. Thank you.
G'day, Greg Hurst from Brotherhood Christian Motorcycle Club. I have a statement here from Wayne Baskin, who's the Honorary Legal Counsel for the United Motorcycle Council in New South Wales. He sends his apologies. He's obviously preparing a High Court challenge to the LAD laws in Queensland, but on Thursday he was informed that the High Court want to see him about the New South Wales consorting laws, so he's madly caught up in all that legal process. So apologies. This is his statement. The premise for bringing into effect the raft of anti-bikie laws was a fight on the Gold Coast and a subsequent siege of a police station, or so the Queensland government say. The reality of these events is somewhat different than portrayed. The fight, involving a few members or associates of two clubs, was a relatively minor event. If it had not occurred in such a public area, no one would have heard it occurring and no one would have given it a second thought. Similarly, the so-called siege of the police station involved a couple of club members yelling at the police station to free their friends. That was it, some siege. The Queensland Parliament then proceeded to bring in dozens of acts and amendments which have created a second-class citizen and which have significantly affected the rights of citizens in Queensland. Not only are these laws unnecessary and brought in under the false premise that outlaw motorcycle clubs are running riot in Queensland. See, for example, the latest crime figures, which show most crimes are declining and members of OMCs are responsible for less than 1% of crimes. The 2009 figures were 0.46%. But more importantly, there is no limit to whom these acts apply. They can be used against every person and every club or organisation in Queensland. As soon as someone speaks out against these laws, they are subjected to personal attacks. Members of the Queensland Government have attacked members of the judiciary, lawyers, academics, and anyone who has had the temerity to oppose what are the harshest, most anti-democratic, rights-destroying laws in the Western world. The Bail Act has been amended so if the police simply allege a defendant is a participant in a prescribed club, then the onus is on that person to show he or she should get bail. This is not easy in the current Queensland climate, which is why most people are being refused bail for minor offences. Some offences do not even carry a jail term as a penalty, yet you can spend 3 to 6 months in solitary confinement waiting for your hearing. Regulations were passed which prescribed 26 clubs as criminal organisations. Half of these clubs do not exist in Queensland and one does not exist at all. A couple aren't even motorcycle clubs. A number of premises were prescribed. They're supposed to be clubhouses of prescribed clubs. However, in some cases, the clubs hadn't used the premises for many years and other people were using them as businesses. The clubs named, apparently, were prescribed because the police said they were criminal organisations. None of this was based on any proper evidence, just their say-so. The Corrective Services Act was amended so that participants in criminal organisations have to wear pink jumpsuits and be put into solitary confinement 23 hours a day. They get 6 minutes a week to speak to their wife or family or lawyer. They have to choose. The VLAD Act was introduced so that if you're a member of a prescribed club and you commit one of the offences in the schedule of furtherance of some kind of club interests, then it is mandatory that if you're convicted of one of these offences, you get an extra 15 or 25 years jail. No submissions, no discussions, no arguments. Even if the judge gives you a $50 fine, you still get 15 or 25 years in jail. The Electricity Services Act, Building Services Act and many other acts have been amended to prevent you from working in your chosen profession. An electrician who is a member of one of the prescribed clubs will be prevented from getting or renewing his licence. There are plenty of other examples. The Racing Act, the Tow Truck Act, the Tattoo Parlours Act, to mention a few. The Criminal Code has been amended with the introduction of Section 60A, B and C. If 3 or more participants in a prescribed club are in public together, then they will get a minimum 6 months jail up to a maximum of 3 years. They do not have to commit any offence, just be in public together. Participant is so broadly defined as to include just about anybody who has any contact with an OMC or an IMC member. Despite what members of the Queensland Government have said, these laws are not limited to outlaw motorcycle clubs. These laws can be used and are being used against anyone. Despite what the members of the Queensland Government are saying, they are not just targeting members of outlaw clubs, they are targeting anyone who rides a motorcycle. Even if they just target members of outlaw motorcycle clubs, it would be wrong. The supporters of these laws like to say, if you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to fear. History and experience shows that we actually have a lot to fear. In Queensland, your rights are being squashed. Equality before the law will soon be a dim memory.